Summer 1941, a New England beach. Rod Stephens Jr. stands watching U.S. Army troops struggle through chest-deep surf during landing exercises. The 41-year-old yacht designer sees soldiers stumbling, crates sinking, equipment getting drenched as they try to haul supplies from offshore boats to dry sand. Most people would shrug and walk away. Stephens sees a problem begging for a solution. He runs the prestigious yacht design firm Sparkman and Stephens with his brother Olin, crafting elegant sailboats for America's wealthy elite. But watching those soldiers fight the waves triggers something in his engineer's mind, a vision of a vehicle that could drive off a ship, swim to shore under its own power, then roll right up the beach and keep going inland without stopping. No transfer points, no vulnerable waiting, no drowned cargo. The US military has landing craft flat-bottomed boats that can beach themselves and drop ramps. But those craft are one-trick ponies. Once they hit sand, sailors have to unload everything onto the beach, then other trucks come collect it and haul it forward. That means bottlenecks. That means exposure to enemy fire. That means chaos during the critical first hours of an invasion when speed means the difference between a beachhead and a bloodbath. Stephens knows boats. He understands how hulls move through water, how displacement works, how you can shape a vessel to handle both calm harbours and rough seas. But he also understands wheels, axles and drivetrains from his years designing racing yachts with auxiliary engines. What if you merged both worlds? Take a truck chassis, something rugged with six-wheel drive, and wrap it in a watertight hull shaped like a boat. Keep the propeller for water propulsion, but retain the wheels for land mobility. The idea sounds insane. Trucks don't float, boats don't have wheels. But in September 1941, 3 months before Pearl Harbor drags America into World War II, Stephens can't let it go. He sketches his concept, a 31-foot vehicle with a boat-shaped steel hull, a GMC truck engine, 6 driven wheels, and a propeller that could fold away when driving on land. He calls it an amphibious truck. The military will eventually call it the DUKW code based on manufacturer designation letters. But everyone who drives one calls it the Duck. Stephens takes his sketches to the War Department in late 1941, walks into meetings with Army logistics officers and Navy procurement chiefs, spreads his drawings across conference tables. He explains how his amphibious truck could carry 5,000 pounds of cargo or 25 fully equipped soldiers, drive that load straight off a transport ship 10 miles offshore, motor through ocean swells, roll up a beach without stopping, then drive another 50 miles inland on roads. The response: polite nods and firm rejections. The military already has landing craft, they say. The Navy has Higgins boats. The Army has plans for floating tanks. Nobody wants to gamble resources on some yacht designer's bizarre truck-boat hybrid. Commodore William Sullivan, an Army engineer assigned to review the proposal, tells Stephens the idea has merit but the timing is wrong, too experimental, too risky when production lines need to focus on proven designs. Stephens leaves those Pentagon meetings frustrated but not defeated. Most officers dismissed his amphibious truck as fantasy, but one man hadn't. Commodore William Sullivan. The Army engineer couldn't officially green-light the project, but he'd seen enough amphibious operations go wrong to know Stephens was onto something. So Sullivan does what creative bureaucrats do when official channels fail. He goes around them. In early 1942, Sullivan contacts the Palmer Marine Engine Company, a small outfit in Cos-Cob, Connecticut, that builds tugboat engines and marine equipment. He suggests they take a serious look at Stephens's design. Palmer's president, Dennis Pulliston, has the advantage of not being locked into military thinking. He looks at the sketches and sees commercial potential beyond warfare, rescue operations, coastal cargo transport, maybe even peacetime application. By March 1942, 3 months after Pearl Harbor turns America's industrial capacity toward total war production, Pulliston agrees to fund a prototype. But Palmer can't build the whole vehicle alone. They need a truck manufacturer with serious production capability and government contracts. That means approaching General Motors Corporation, specifically their GMC truck division. GMC is already churning out thousands of CCKW trucks, the famous deuce-and-a-half workhorses that will haul everything from ammunition to wounded soldiers across every theatre of World War II. Rod Stephens travels to Detroit in April 1942 with Pulsiston to pitch GMC engineers. This time the reception is different. GMC's team includes men who understand both the mechanical challenges and the military's desperate need for logistics innovation. They've heard the horror stories from Guadalcanal, where supplies piled up on beaches under Japanese artillery fire, because there was no quick way to move material inland. The GMC engineers study Stephens' hull design, a welded steel body shaped like a boat's hull, but riding on a modified CCKW truck chassis. The vehicle would use the GMC 270 cubic inch inline-six engine, the same reliable power plant in their standard trucks, generating 91 horsepower. That engine would drive all 6 wheels through a transfer case when on land, but it would also power a propeller mounted at the stern for water propulsion. The technical challenges are enormous. How do you seal a truck chassis so it's completely watertight? How do you protect the engine from salt water? How do you make wheels that can grip muddy beaches but still fold up enough to reduce drag when swimming? How do you keep the vehicle stable when it's neither quite a boat nor quite a truck, but trying to be both? GMC's engineers spend 6 weeks working through the problems. They add a bilge pump system to handle any water that leaks in, create a special transmission that can switch between wheel drive and propeller drive, design a rudder system that works with the front wheels. Turning the steering wheel would turn both the front wheels and the rudder, so drivers don't need separate controls for land and water. By late May 1942, they have blueprints. By June, they have welders and mechanics building the first prototype at a facility near Cape Cod, Massachusetts. The location isn't random. They need access to both roads and ocean water for testing. On June 3, 1942, the first DUKW prototype rolls out of the assembly building. It looks bizarre, like someone took a boat, added 6 wheels underneath, and forgot to pick whether they were building a ship or a truck. The hull sits high on the chassis, giving it an ungainly top-heavy appearance. But appearances don't matter. The question is simple. Will it work? The test crew gathers at Cape Cod on June 4, 1942, staring at the prototype with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. The DUKW, its name, derived from GMC's manufacturer code, where D meant 1942 model year, U meant utility amphibian, K meant all-wheel drive, and W meant dual rear axles, looks like nothing anyone has seen before. Rod Stephens climbs into the driver's seat for the first water test. The engine rumbles to life and he drives the vehicle down a boat ramp into Massachusetts Bay. The DUKW settles into the water, its hull displacing enough seawater to float the 6.5-ton vehicle with remarkable stability. Stephens engages the propeller drive, and the duck begins moving forward at about 5 knots, roughly 6 miles per hour on water. It handles the gentle harbour waves without trouble, turning responsively when Stephens works the steering wheel. After 20 minutes of swimming, he aims the bow toward the beach and throttles up. The DUKW rides a small wave towards shore. Its front wheels touch sand beneath the waterline, and without any transition or gear change, those wheels grab traction and pull the vehicle up onto dry beach. Stephens keeps his foot on the accelerator, and the duck rolls from sea to sand to grass without stopping, water pouring from its hull drains. The test observers break into applause. For the next 3 weeks, engineers push the prototype harder. They load it with 5,000 pounds of sandbags to simulate cargo and send it back into the ocean. It still floats, still swims, still climbs beaches. They test it in 4-foot swells, drive it through soft sand that would have trapped ordinary trucks, run it on highways at 50 miles per hour to prove it can keep pace with conventional military vehicles during road marches. Every test reveals small problems: seals that leak, a propeller shaft that vibrates at certain speeds, steering that feels mushy when transitioning from water to land. But these are fixable engineering issues, not fundamental design flaws. By late June 1942, GMC invites military observers to witness demonstration runs. The response is dramatically different from the Pentagon meeting 6 months earlier. Logistics officers who've seen nightmares unfold on Pacific beaches immediately grasp what the DUKW can do. It eliminates the most dangerous bottleneck in amphibious warfare, that moment when supplies sit exposed on a beach waiting for trucks to collect them. A DUKW can swim directly from a cargo ship to shore, drive inland to a supply dump, unload, then drive back into the ocean and return to the ship for another load. No cranes needed, no separate boats and trucks, no vulnerable transfer points where enemy artillery can create catastrophe. The Army places its first order in July 1942 for 2,000 units. GMC immediately converts part of its manufacturing facility to DUKW production. Workers who'd been building standard trucks learned to weld watertight hulls and install marine propulsion systems. The production line begins slowly, just 50 DUKWs completed in August 1942, but ramps up quickly as workers master the unusual construction process. By December 1942, GMC is completing 100 DUKWs per week. The first operational units ship to North Africa in early 1943, where American forces are grinding through desert campaigns against the German Afrika Korps. But the DUKW's real test won't come in Africa. It will come on the beaches of Sicily in July 1943, where amphibious logistics will either make or break the Allied invasion of Europe. Nobody knows yet, but Rod Stephens' boat-truck hybrid is about to prove itself in the most demanding classroom imaginable: combat against an entrenched enemy defending a hostile shoreline. Operation Husky launches on July 10, 1943, throwing 160,000 Allied troops at Sicily's southern coast in the largest amphibious invasion yet attempted. The planning has been meticulous, the naval bombardment devastating, and the initial beach landings successful. But by the afternoon of July 11th, the invasion is choking on its own logistics. Conventional landing craft have delivered thousands of troops to shore, but supplies are piling up in chaotic mountains along the waterline. Artillery shells stacked beside medical supplies, fuel drums rolling in the surf, ammunition crates sitting exposed under the Mediterranean sun, while Luftwaffe reconnaissance planes circle overhead, radioing coordinates to German artillery batteries inland. The problem isn't getting supplies to the beach, it's getting them off the beach fast enough to prevent catastrophic bottlenecks. Traditional doctrine calls for landing craft to beach themselves, unload onto the sand, then retract. Separate trucks would then drive down to collect those supplies and haul them to forward dumps. But Sicily's beaches are a mess of soft sand and scattered rock that bog down standard trucks. Worse, a sudden storm on July 11th kicks up 4-foot waves that swamp several landing craft and make unloading nearly impossible. Supplies that should have reached frontline units within hours sit stranded on beaches for a full day. Then on the morning of July 12th, the first contingent of DUKWs arrives. 200 of them assigned to the US 7th Army's logistics units. Most soldiers have never seen anything like them. Officers who'd been briefed on the amphibious trucks are skeptical that these boat-shaped vehicles can handle real combat conditions. That skepticism evaporates within hours. The DUKWs drive straight off transport ships anchored a mile offshore, form up in the water like a swimming convoy, and motor toward the beach at 5 knots. When they hit the surf zone where landing craft struggle, the DUKWs simply keep coming. Their wheels touch bottom, grip sand and pull them up through the waves without pausing. They roll past the stranded supply dumps, drive half a mile inland to a supply depot, unload their cargo directly from the truck bed, then drive back into the ocean and return to the transport ships for another load. No cranes, no transfer points, no vulnerable beach stockpiles. Within 24 hours, those 200 DUKWs move more cargo inland than 500 conventional trucks had managed in the previous 2 days. General George Patton, commanding the 7th Army, sends an urgent message to Allied headquarters requesting every available DUKW be shipped to Sicily immediately. The numbers tell the story. A conventional supply system requires landing craft to beach, soldiers to manually unload supplies onto sand, separate trucks to collect those supplies, a minimum of 45 minutes per cycle. A DUKW can swim from ship to shore in 12 minutes, drive directly inland in another 8 minutes, unload in 10 minutes, and be back at the ship in 20 minutes. A complete 50-minute cycle with no vulnerable beach stockpile. More importantly, DUKWs can operate in conditions that ground everything else. When the July storm creates swells that halt landing craft operations, DUKWs keep swimming. Their boat-shaped hulls handle rough water better than flat-bottomed landing craft, and their wheels let them power through surf that would have swamped other vehicles. By July 20th, 10 days into the Sicily campaign, DUKWs are hauling 40% of all supplies, moving from ships to shore, despite representing less than 10% of available vehicles. One DUKW company sets a record by moving 3,000 tons of ammunition in a single day, more than an entire battalion of conventional trucks. The German commanders defending Sicily notice too. Captured intelligence reports from late July show German officers expressing frustration that Allied supplies are reaching the front faster than expected, despite Luftwaffe attacks on beach dumps. They can't understand how the Americans are avoiding the bottlenecks that should have slowed the invasion. The answer is swimming in plain sight. Sicily proves the concept, but D-Day will prove the DUKW's indispensability on a scale that will reshape amphibious warfare forever. By June 6, 1944, Allied planners have amassed roughly 2,000 DUKWs for Operation Overlord, the invasion of Normandy. They've learned from Sicily's success and integrated the amphibious trucks into every phase of the logistics plan. The difference is that Normandy presents far harsher challenges than Sicily's Mediterranean beaches. The English Channel churns with unpredictable currents and cold water. The beaches themselves stretch for miles with varying terrain, some hard-packed sand, others soft shingle that swallows wheels. And German defences are layered and lethal, with artillery pre-sighted on every likely unloading point. On the morning of June 6th, as the first assault waves hit Omaha, Utah, Gold, Juneau and Sword beaches, the DUKWs launch from transport ships between 3 and 7 miles offshore. Conventional landing craft typically launch within a mile of shore to limit their vulnerable time in open water. DUKWs can launch farther out because they're faster in water and more stable in rough seas. At Omaha Beach, where American forces face the fiercest German resistance, DUKWs become lifelines. The initial landings descend into chaos as German machine guns and artillery shred assault waves pinned against the seawall. Conventional supply craft trying to beach themselves become easy targets. Many are hit before they can even drop their ramps. DUKWs approaching from farther offshore in scattered patterns rather than predictable waves present harder targets. More importantly, they don't stop at the waterline where German guns have been precisely ranged. A DUKW will hit the beach, accelerate through the killing zone, and keep driving until it reaches defilade, a small hill, a crater, a destroyed bunker, anywhere with cover. This mobility saves countless vehicles and their crews during those first desperate hours when Omaha Beach resembles a slaughterhouse more than a beachhead. By midday on June 6th, DUKWs are shuttling wounded soldiers back to hospital ships offshore, role nobody had anticipated, but which proves invaluable. A DUKW can load 25 wounded men at a beach aid station, drive into the surf and deliver them to a ship's medical bay within 30 minutes. Conventional evacuation requires transferring wounded from beach to landing craft to ship, with each transfer risking further injury. At WWII Beach, where landings go more smoothly, DUKWs establish a rhythm that will continue for weeks. They form a rotating conveyor belt, 20 DUKWs swimming toward shore loaded with ammunition, 20 driving inland to dump sites, 20 returning empty to the ships, constantly cycling. Each DUKW averages 12 round trips per day, moving 2.5 tons of cargo per trip. That means each vehicle delivers 30 tons daily. Multiply that by 500 DUKWs working Utah Beach, and you get 15,000 tons of supplies per day from a single beach sector. The numbers from all 5 beaches combined are staggering. In the first week after D-Day, DUKWs move approximately 40% of all cargo landed in Normandy, roughly 18,000 tons daily. Despite representing only 15% of available landing vessels, they're simply more efficient than anything else available. General Dwight Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander, tours the beaches on June 12 and watches DUKWs in operation. His after-action report specifically credits them with preventing the logistics collapse that had threatened to stall the invasion during its critical first days. British forces report similar success. At Gold Beach, Royal Army Service Corps units operating DUKWs managed to keep up with ammunition demands from inland artillery batteries that are firing nearly continuously during German counterattacks. The DUKW's ability to deliver shells directly to gun positions rather than to intermediate dumps means British artillery can maintain fire rates that German planners had calculated were impossible to sustain. The Pacific Theatre presents challenges nobody had anticipated when Rod Stephens first sketched his amphibious truck back in 1941. European beaches mean sand and shingle, relatively predictable surfaces. Pacific islands mean coral reefs, jagged volcanic rock, and typhoons that can appear with 24 hours' notice. The DUKW's first serious Pacific test comes during the invasion of Saipan in June 1944. Marines hit the beaches expecting tough resistance from Japanese defenders, but they get an additional nightmare. The coral reefs surrounding Saipan extend 500 yards offshore in some places. Landing craft approach the island, scrape onto hidden coral heads, and stop dead in the water. Troops have to wade hundreds of yards under fire, and vehicles can't land at all during low tide. DUKW has changed the equation. Their wheels can grip coral that would shred a landing craft's flat bottom. When a DUKW encounters a reef, it simply drives over it. Wheels find purchase on the uneven surface, and the propeller keeps pushing from behind. Marines watch in amazement as DUKWs roll over reefs that have stopped everything else, churn through the shallow lagoons beyond, and deliver supplies directly to the beach. But Saipan also exposes a critical vulnerability. Japanese artillery and anti-tank guns quickly learned to target the ungainly amphibious trucks. A DUKW's thin steel hull, designed to be watertight and light enough to float, offers virtually no protection against armor-piercing rounds. Several DUKWs take direct hits and sink within minutes, their crews scrambling into the water. The after-action reports from Saipan reach GMC's engineering team by late July 1944. They immediately begin designing field modification kits, bolt-on armor plates for the driver's compartment and engine bay, reinforced hull sections around the waterline, where hits are most common, and mounts for 30 caliber machine guns, so DUKW crews can suppress enemy positions while approaching shore. These modifications add 800 pounds to each vehicle and reduce top water speed from 6 miles per hour to 5. Commanders consider it a worthwhile trade. Then come the typhoons. In October 1944, during the invasion of Leyte in the Philippines, Typhoon Cobra sweeps through the invasion fleet, with sustained winds exceeding 100 miles per hour. Dozens of ships drag anchor, landing craft capsize, and the invasion's logistics grind to a halt for 3 days while the storm rages. Except the DUKWs keep working, their enclosed hulls and low profile make them more stable in extreme weather than open landing craft. When 8-foot waves are swamping Higgins boats, DUKWs can still operate by diving through wave faces rather than riding over them. Navy crews discover that DUKWs can actually serve as rescue vehicles during storms, They motor out to swamped landing craft, load survivors, and swim back to transport ships that conventional rescue boats can't reach. By late 1944, Pacific Theater commanders are requesting design changes specific to island warfare. They want more powerful bilge pumps because coral often punctures hulls below the waterline. They want sealed storage compartments for ammunition that can stay dry even if the main hull floods. They want reinforced suspension because volcanic rock beaches are destroying wheel bearings at 3 times the rate seen in Europe. GM France responds with a modified Pacific variant by February 1945. These upgraded DUKWs feature dual bilge pumps capable of moving 60 gallons per minute, waterproof ammunition lockers welded into the hull, and heavy-duty wheel bearings rated for twice the normal load. They also add a snorkel system that allows the engine to run even if the hull takes on water up to 18 inches deep. The Battle of Okinawa in April 1945 becomes the DUKW's final major test. The island's complex coastline cliffs, narrow beaches, and treacherous currents makes conventional unloading nearly impossible at many points. DUKWs find spots where they can wedge between rocks, drive up steep inclines that would have stopped trucks, and deliver supplies to positions that seem unreachable. One DUKW company supporting the 96th Infantry Division completes 847 supply runs in 12 days, across terrain where engineers had said wheeled vehicles couldn't operate. What truly sets the DUKW apart from every other amphibious vehicle isn't just its ability to swim and drive. It's the self-loading capability that Rod Stephens built into the original design. Most people focus on the dramatic sight of DUKWs emerging from the ocean, but logistics officers obsess over what happens after the vehicle reaches its destination. A standard cargo truck requires separate equipment to unload heavy items. You need a crane, a forklift, or a team of soldiers manually hauling crates. This creates dependency, and delay supplies can only move as fast as unloading equipment can be positioned. The DUKW eliminates that bottleneck with an ingenious built-in system. Engineers at GMC install a powered winch mounted at the front of the cargo bed, rated to pull 10,000 pounds. That winch connects to a removable A-frame boom, essentially a small crane, that can be erected in about 3 minutes by 2 crew members. The boom can swing through a 180-degree arc, reaching over either side of the vehicle or straight out the back. Here's how it works in practice. A DUKW arrives at a supply ship, positions itself alongside, and crew members erect the A-frame. Ship cranes lower cargo, everything from 2,000-pound pallets of ammunition to 55-gallon fuel drums lashed together into the DUKW's cargo bed. Once loaded, the DUKW swims to shore and drives to a supply dump. The crew positions the vehicle, engages the winch, attaches the hook to a cargo pallet, and the electric winch lifts that pallet up and over the side rails, lowering it to the ground. No forklift needed, no crane required, no waiting for equipment that might be busy elsewhere. The system is slow by modern standards. Unloading 5,000 pounds of cargo takes about 15 minutes, using the boom and winch, but that 15 minutes happens independently at the exact moment the DUKW arrives at its destination. Multiply that across 50 DUKWs arriving at staggered intervals, and you have a supply system that flows continuously without the surge and wait pattern that plagues conventional logistics. Some units get creative with the system. During the Battle of the Bulge in December 1944, American forces surrounded at Bastogne are running critically low on ammunition. DUKWs can't swim to Bastogne. It's 200 miles inland. But their self-unloading capability proves vital anyway. Supply officers load DUKWs with ammunition at rear depots, and the trucks drive through snow and ice to forward positions. The frozen ground is too hard for soldiers to dig proper supply bunkers, so DUKW crews use their booms to stack ammunition crates in protected positions against building walls and under tree cover work that would have taken hours with manual labor. The boom system has another unexpected benefit: recovery operations. When a DUKW throws a track or gets stuck in mud, another DUKW can pull it free, using the winch and boom as a recovery crane. This self-sufficiency means DUKW companies can operate independently without dedicated maintenance and recovery vehicles following them around. Field modifications expand the system's versatility. Some units add extended boom arms that increase lift height from 8 feet to 12 feet, allowing them to stack supplies higher or reach over obstacles. Others install dual hook systems that let them handle 2 smaller loads simultaneously. A few innovative quartermasters in the Philippines even rig their DUKWs with cargo nets suspended from the boom, creating an improvised system for moving bulk supplies like ration boxes that don't need pallets. The self-loading capability also makes DUKWs valuable for engineering work. Combat engineers use them to position pontoon bridge sections, haul construction materials to river crossing sites, and even lift damaged vehicles out of waterways. During the Rhine River crossings in March 1945, DUKWs function as floating cranes, positioning sections of Bailey Bridge while under sporadic German artillery fire. By war's end, the US Army has fielded approximately 21,000 DUKWs across all theaters. The Soviet Union receives another 586 through Lend-Lease, and British forces operate roughly 2,000. That boom and winch system, functioning on thousands of vehicles across 3 continents, moves an estimated 12 million tons of cargo without requiring a single separate crane or forklift. When Germany surrenders in May 1945 and Japan follows in August, the US military finds itself with thousands of DUKWs scattered across the globe and no more beaches to invade. The Pentagon's initial plan is straightforward: scrap them. The vehicles have served their purpose and peacetime budgets can't justify maintaining specialized amphibious trucks. But the DUKW has a second act that nobody predicts. In the spring of 1946, severe flooding hits the Mississippi River Valley, submerging thousands of acres and stranding entire communities. The National Guard deploys whatever equipment can handle both land and water. Someone remembers the DUKWs sitting in storage depots. Within days, 50 DUKWs are shuttling evacuees from flooded towns to dry ground, navigating through neighborhoods where water is too shallow for boats, but too deep for trucks. The vehicles can drive down a flooded street, load families from second-story windows, then swim to evacuation centers on higher ground. That Mississippi River deployment establishes a pattern that will repeat dozens of times over the next 3 decades. When Hurricane Hazel devastates North Carolina in 1954, DUKWs rescue 3,000 stranded residents. When the North Sea flood swamps the Netherlands in 1953, the Dutch government purchases surplus DUKWs from US Army stocks and uses them to reach isolated communities cut off by breached dikes. When the 1966 Florence flood submerges Italian art treasures, DUKWs evacuate priceless paintings from museums while floodwaters rise. Between 1946 and 1965, DUKWs participate in documented rescue operations in the United States, Netherlands, United Kingdom, Germany, Japan, and the Philippines, saving an estimated 47,000 lives in situations where conventional vehicles couldn't operate. But the most visible peacetime role comes from an entirely different direction: tourism. In 1946, Mel Flath, a former DUKW driver who'd operated the vehicles during the Sicily invasion, buys 4 surplus DUKWs for $500 each at a government auction in Wisconsin. He has a wild idea: use them for sightseeing tours around the Wisconsin Dells, a scenic area with dramatic rock formations along the Wisconsin River. Tourists would board the DUKW on land, drive through forests and parks while a guide narrates local history. Then, without warning, the vehicle would roll down a boat ramp into the river and continue the tour on water. Flath launches his Duck Tours operation in 1946, and it's an immediate sensation. People love the moment of surprise when the truck suddenly becomes a boat. Families with children can't get enough of the novelty. By 1950, FLATH is running 12 DUKWs and conducting 30 tours daily during summer season. The concept spreads. Boston launches Duck Tours in 1994, using refurbished World War II DUKWs to tour the city's historic neighborhoods before splashing into the Charles River. Seattle, Philadelphia, London, Singapore, and dozens of other cities follow. The tours become cultural icons. Visitors to these cities specifically seek out the Duck Tour experience. As of 2024, more than 200 DUKWs remain in active tourist service worldwide, carrying an estimated 3 million passengers annually. The vehicles are now 80+ years old, rebuilt and maintained by specialists who fabricate replacement parts for components that haven't been manufactured since 1945. Original GNC engines have been replaced with modern diesel power plants, hydraulic systems upgraded, safety equipment added to meet current regulations. But the basic design Rod Stephens's boat-shaped hull on a truck chassis remains unchanged because it still works. The military eventually does develop replacement amphibious vehicles, the Lark V in the 1950s, the AAV-7 in the 1970s, and modern systems like the EFV attempt to improve on the DUKW's capabilities. But none achieves the elegant simplicity of Stephens's original concept. A vehicle that could do three things well enough that it excelled at the integrated task, even if specialized vehicles could beat it at individual components. The DUKW couldn't outswim a dedicated landing craft, couldn't outhaul a dedicated cargo truck, and couldn't outlift a dedicated crane. But no other single vehicle could do all three, which made it irreplaceable for 30 years of military service and gave it an afterlife that's now lasted twice as long as the war it was designed to fight.